Restorative Family Group conferencing has been around for centuries. In 1989, it became the standard method of dealing with youth crime in New Zealand. Canadians began using family group conferencing for minor offences in 1997. When the Youth Criminal Justice Act came into effect in Canada in 2003, youth court judges were empowered to order family group conferences in serious cases involving considerable harm. The story you are about to hear is about three boys who were staying at a lake cabin. After an enjoyable day of lake activities, they began drinking alcohol. After supper, they went swimming with a couple of girls. The local youth came along and stole their clothes. They couldn't find him at first, but egged on by the girls, they went looking for the boy, demanding the clothing back. In a few seconds, they assaulted the victim so severely that he was left on the beach, suffering from a traumatic brain.
These three young offenders are before this court for sentencing on a very serious incident of assault. It was a foot stomping resulting in neurological injury. The victim initiated contact with the three defendants and two girls. The latter group was swimming at Cultus Lake when the victim took some of their clothing after insults had occurred. The clothing was discarded. Later that evening, and after some urgings by the girls, the defendants went looking for the victim. He was brutally attacked. He was kicked in the head and body while he was in the ground. His injuries are significant. He has outlined in his victim impact statement the details of a lengthy convalescence. He incurred loss of cognitive abilities, psychological and physiological changes. He has had a very slow and painful recovery. Furthermore, his injuries did not merely impact his own life, but as well that of his parents as they tended for their injured son. There is little redeeming value in saying they did not intend to do the harm that occurred.
Criminal law is not as concerned about repairing the harm as it is about the wrongfulness of the act.
There's been a movement in the judiciary towards a model of therapeutic jurisprudence. In their book, Law in a Therapeutic Key, Developments in Therapeutic Jurisprudence, authors Wexler and Winnick seem to be borrowing a lot of metaphors from Zare, including his analogy of a wide-angle lens versus the narrower view from a telephoto lens.
Can justice heal? Should justice heal?
Go out and drink, party, do what teenagers do.
Before the offense, I was just a regular person, just chilling with my buddies and just like to drink and hang out, party. And
before the fence, we used to have parties, used to go out and drink with each other, have a good time. Just experiencing young stuff, meeting new girls and all that kind of stuff, right? The day of the fence, we were having a good time, picked up some girls on the beach. Went out boating, did a little bit of cliff jumping, went drinking and just doing what kids do.
Parked the boat and started drinking some beers and smoking some blunts and just chilling, and ended up getting pretty buzzed, right, during the day.
Tried to make the night more exciting. Went skinny dipping with some girls, partied around with them. Just chilling, like.
Yeah, it was pretty vague, right, because I was kind of drunk, but we just went swimming with these two girls and trying to get them to take their tops off for a bit, and they did. They threw their tops up on the dock, and we were swimming around for like 10 minutes or something.
Oh, well, we were all skinny dipping, having a good time with the girls. A few guys came walking up on the dock, approached us, asked if we had any marijuana to buy.
Some guy came along and picked up their shirts and stuff and was like, "Oh, what do we got here?"
Ripping us off a bit and decided he was going to take the girls' clothes.
We were like, I don't know, the girls were like, "Oh, go get her clothes back, go get her clothes back," and then we went swimming over towards the dock and this guy ran off with their clothes. And then we went chasing around, chased him down or whatever, lost him, couldn't find him because we were barefooted running around on the rocks. And then we went back and got dressed.
Well, we were at the cabin, we were drinking, a little bit, trying to, I guess, getting ourselves a little bit more hyped up. The girls were all yapping, I want my clothes back and stuff, telling us to go find their stuff, and so we went out and looked for the guys that stole the girls' clothing.
I don't know, we confronted him, asked him for his clothes back. He got lippy, whatever, we got lippy and got out of hand. They hit him, and everyone jumped on him, and we all attacked him.
Kind of thing. So we got in a little argument, and then worst came to worst, we started scrapping it out with them. A little bit of a crew of them, so tried to deal with it, but it just turned out to be a bad night. Beat the kid worse than we thought we would have. Tried to just knock some sense into him. And
We all attacked him, and the rest of his buddies just ran away and left him there to get beat. One of his buddies stayed behind and tried to help him out. And after he was down and it was like 30 seconds, everything was done, we all just kind of booked it. He was laying there not saying nothing, not moving. We were just like, oh fuck. We left.
After it all happened, after the incident, he was just lying there and, not moving, not making a noise. We're running away and was pretty scared. And just freaked me out.
At first, all three boys tried to deny that the assault took place, but once they realized how severe the assault was and that he could die.
We ended up going back to the girls' campsite and just going over the story, what we were going to say to police. So we wanted to have it flawless, and the story was, we weren't there, we were here, and no, we didn't hear anything about that, and no, we don't know anything about it, and we were just totally denying it. Was our plan.
Talked to by security guards and police and whatever. We just denied everything. Tried to, we did lie about it.
I was a little bit worried. I didn't know what was going to happen. Tried to talk to my buddies that I convicted the offense with. Talked to them about it. We didn't know what we were going to do. Tried to leave, run away. I didn't know. We were just scared. Didn't know what to do.
I had prior charges, a charge of assault. So I figured I would have been put away for sure, right? So I was like, I'm not gonna, I didn't want to, I have a job and that kind of stuff. I didn't want to lose my job, right? So
came to my buddy's house and they all told us that all three of us are getting charged for assault.
yeah, and we gave ourselves up.
Yeah, it was aggravated assault. Didn't know what that was at the time. A little bit worried, thought I was going to go to jail for a little while. Didn't know what was going to happen.
I found out that his brain was swelling, that he's got a good chance of not making it, not pulling through, and that he is gonna die or whatever. I was scared. I laid in my bed and was like, didn't know what to think, didn't know what to do. I thought about killing myself if I took someone's life, but I wanted to find out if it happened first.
It just made me feel uneasy. Like I didn't like the feeling I had. It's hard to explain. It's just you almost killed someone. He's in the hospital. Could die. Is what I was told. So that's what I was thinking, right? What if I actually killed someone, right? It's a pretty shitty feeling.
Oh, and I found out the victim was in the hospital. I didn't expect that I did that much damage to the guy. I was a little bit worried for him. I didn't know what was going to happen to him. Heard he might die from the swelling in his brain. So I was a little bit scared at the time. Lots on my mind at that time. Oh, the court system was a nutty thing. It's crazy going to court every couple months just to see, and then seeing the victim at the court was hard. It wasn't too easy seeing him, looking at him, and him looking at us was felt like a nobody at the court.
I feel the court was trying to understand. That's the only reason I could figure why it took so long. Because if they didn't want to understand, they would have just put us in jail or whatever and made us deal with what we did. Awkward situation, I think, going to court and trying to figure out what's going on.
A long process. We went to court about, I don't even know how many times we went to court. it kept getting pushed over. So it kind of felt like they were thinking about it, kind of felt like they were contemplating about what to do with us. And they decided to go with the program that we just
I was
did.
convinced after speaking with you that these were not criminals, but rather kids who did terrible things because they had had too much alcohol, and they weren't a whole bunch different from any other, most normal kids. And to put those children in jail is not a solution, nor would it help my son heal, and nor help my family heal.
Obviously, people's parents care about their children, and they were pretty upset. And I remember when I was standing there, his mom was crying and just asking me why we did that. And I just couldn't even look at her, I just had to look down.
It wasn't the boys that were bad, it was what they were, the drugs and the alcohol that they were on and the peer pressures. That's what I believe caused them to get out of hand that night.
When I saw the victim again and his family, it was a little, I don't know, it was hard to deal with, I guess. I looked at him and I could see that he was looking at me, and I didn't really recognize him at the time, but I guess I just had a feeling that that was him. And I just had to look away. I couldn't really look in his face.
The conference was co-facilitated by Pamela Ackerman and Barry Neufeld, Family Group Conference facilitators. The purpose of the conference is to discover who has been hurt, what are their needs, and how can those attending the conference attempt to repair the harm and make things right.
Well, when I was going into it, I thought they were going to be like, oh, you guys did this and you guys did that, but they were more like, what did you guys do? What happened that night? They were more like asking, not telling, understanding, not angry, right?
After careful preparation of the participants, a family group conference was held at local burn injury drop-in center. In attendance were the 3 offenders and their parents, the victim and his parents, one of the offender's school teachers, one of the offender's probation officers, and myself.
Well, I received a call at midnight. I'd been trying to page Colin for about an hour and he hadn't answered my pages. And about midnight I received a call from the Cultus Lake police, and they told me that he'd been badly injured. And so I rushed down, and when I got there they were just loading him into the ambulance. He was unconscious and in convulsions, and followed him back to the hospital, and after several hours at the hospital they realized that he had to have more advanced neurosurgical facilities. And thankfully, VGH was able to take him. So we followed him down to VGH, and he was in there, I believe, 5 days, and stayed with him. And I'm very thankful that the surgeons and God looked after him, because he's come through. He still has some problems, but he's alive and he's certainly making good progress.
I believe he's a lot better, but he's not fully recovered. He holds a lot of memories of the ordeal still.
I didn't know what to think when I walked in there, right? I didn't know what was going to happen or what to do, but then after seeing him and him asking me a few questions first, it's a little easier to deal with, right?
Pretty hectic in the conference as well. There's a lot of emotion in there, right? My mom's emotional, she was crying, and my buddy's mom was crying, and my other buddy's grandma was crying. Like, his parents were crying, and it's just like, oh, it kind of made you think about why you do something like that. And
Panicked.
what I was really
Basically, I guess, went into shock, and right away phoned my husband, Michael, and raced to the hospital. I found a lot of people crowded around my son's room, no one was allowed to go in the room, except for myself, because Colin was screaming for me, "Mommy, Mommy," and when he got conscious. And So I went in for a few minutes, but then I was quickly asked to leave because I was ill. I was sick myself, so I had to leave the room. And then whatever happened after that.
He really wasn't able to walk unassisted. His speech was heavily slurred. Of course, visually, he was frightening. He was purple and badly bruised throughout his body, but especially his face and neck. There was actually a footprint on his face from where somebody kicked him with a running shoe, and there was a visible footprint on his cheek. He certainly wasn't coherent in a way where you could carry on a conversation. He could talk some, and he could understand what you're saying to a degree, but it took a long time, weeks before we could really carry on an intelligent conversation with him.
I had a full-time job, and I had to basically quit it and look after Colin. Michael and I were separated at the time, so I had to move back home and to look after Colin for 4 months until he was back on his feet.
What I was really amazed with that, he was actually more cool with it than his parents were. Like, he just was like, you know what, he's like, whatever. He's like, don't beat people so bad like that. He's like, it screws them up. And he's like, I know I was being lippy and stuff, probably deserved to get in a fight, but not that bad. And I understood that, and he understood that. So that was nice. I didn't expect that at all.
Just really remorseful. No one was like hating on anybody. It was just more, let's find out what's going on and see what we can do about it, and let's try to change something and make good out of it.
He had bad temper problems. Like he got in a big fight with his girlfriend and just would lose it for apparently no reason. Just totally get angry. Just go ballistic, his parents were saying. And obviously, having your child going crazy for no reason would probably be pretty stressful for his parents as well, hadn't it?
Memory loss, like he couldn't, and getting aggravated, I guess, always freaking out. He couldn't really remember what was going on.
When he got home from the hospital, he wasn't able to walk. I had to try and couldn't even make it to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Probably had problems in school, trying to remember all his classes and remember his homework and remember people's names and stuff, like his friends. And he's probably pretty choked about not having his girlfriend of 3 years around, right? That's a big loss, I think. I've had a girlfriend for a while, and I'd be choked if she wasn't around, right? That's how it is if you have that kind of problem with your brain.
But yeah, it must have been hard for them both. Well, I guess if they just split up before that, for them to both get together and deal with their son, take care of him.
He had lots of trouble sleeping. He said he could barely sleep sometimes. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, just look around and be like, I can't sleep. I'd wake up with headaches. Had a hard time sleeping.
He needed at least 14 hours of sleep a day.
The conference was very tough. It was extremely emotional. Definitely a trying time in my life, not understanding what was going through these boys' head, not understanding how something like this could happen. When I left, I was very nervous, like everybody, about the conference and what was going to go on.
It was a highly emotionally charged conference. I think it was probably the single most touching time of my life as far as emotion. Emotion for them, emotion for my children, my family, their families, their mothers, the father that came and the grandmother. This had been very hard on all of them.
Shame. Well, I felt bad for what I did, but no one tried to make me feel bad for what I did. No one, like, put a finger on me and told me that, you know, you did this. And it wasn't like that. They're all forgiving, wanted to know what the situation was like and why it happened.
They didn't make us feel like we're unwanted or anything, and trying to blame it on us. They're just there to help us out and see how it was and what we could do about it. And very supportive. Very supportive.
Well, I felt shame, like, within, right, obviously, but they weren't trying to make me feel shame. They were just totally forgiving. It was amazing how forgiving they were.
It made me feel better after I got to talk to him and his family, and they got to ask me their questions, and then they got to see how I felt, and I got to see what happened with them, and got to know a lot more, right?
I feel sorry for what I did to him. I didn't expect to put him through so much pain and all that trouble that I put him through. Hard on him, made him lose a lot of things in his life that he could have had. It must have been hard for him, and I'm sorry for what I did to him. But I can't change the past, and no one can, right? It's hard to remember about it. It's always going to be in my mind.
No, of course he didn't deserve the beating that he got. We wanted to rough him up, sure, and beat him up a bit, but he didn't deserve what happened. He didn't deserve to go to the hospital or any of that. It just happened so quick, and we didn't know what to think. He just fell over and stopped moving. I was scared and ran. I didn't mean to, I guess, hit him that hard.
Yes, I'm absolutely convinced that no one will ever be hurt at these three boys' hands again. I think this was a life-changing event for them. It certainly was a life-changing event for everyone involved. We all learned a lot about forgiving and getting on with the task in front of us rather than looking behind us.
Try to learn forgiveness, I guess. It's something that takes time, and we can all do it.
I wouldn't be forgiving myself, so I don't know how he could or his parents could, but they did.
He told us that he's forgiving and stuff, and that, you know, it was a bad night for both of us, and turned wrong. I was very shocked when he said that. I thought he'd be a little upset.
It was just a shock that he was so forgiving and so understanding, and I mean, so many kids would be so angry. I guess it's a lot of steps to get to that point, and I hope the kids learned a lot just from his reaction.
At the conference, the boys told their version of what happened, and the victim responded. The harm was described in chilling detail. The three youth retired to a breakout room with a school teacher and the victim's father. They agreed to contribute to an electronic learning aid to assist the victim in college. They also agreed to tell their story on this video. Once the agreement was reached, it was signed by the offenders, the victim, and their parents. The facilitator presented the agreement and a brief summary of the conference to the youth court judge. After a week's deliberation, the judge made a probation order based on the agreements reached in the conference.
These three youths' willingness to participate in a family conference and the constructive results demonstrates that a community-based sentence is likely the appropriate response. Furthermore, each youth, by their social background, family support, and strength of personal characteristics, appear to possess the basic tools to carry out the terms of a probationary order. Jail is likely an impediment to their developing sense of responsibilities to themselves, to others, and to the community at large. If you three would just stand for a moment. Given the entirety of the circumstances, I'm treating each of the defendants in the same manner and impose a period of probation. The terms that I'm going to impose will be a blend between the pre-sentence report and the family conference recommendations. The terms are these: keep the peace, be of good behavior, report forthwith to your youth court worker thereafter as directed, reside as directed and abide by all the rules and regulations of that residence. You're not to change that residence without the prior approval of your youth court worker. You are each to abstain absolutely from the possession or consumption of alcohol and non-prescription drugs. As well, you're to supply a sample of your breath, blood, or urine for confirmation of this provision. Take and successfully complete counseling as directed. You're prohibited from possessing any weapons as defined by the criminal code. Attend school or be employed full-time as directed by your youth court worker. You're each to pay $150 to McKee on or before December 24th, 2003 towards the costs of an electronic learning aid. As well, pursuant to your agreement reached at the family conference, you're each to perform 50 hours of community work service to be completed on or before June 30th, 2003. And that community hours are to be for the purposes of the preparation of a video and presentation to schools on the adverse effects of alcohol and violence. It's also appropriate in the circumstances pursuant to the provisions of section 487.05 sub 1 that each of you provide a sample of your DNA. All right, thank you. That concludes this sentencing process. Good luck.
Yeah, I think making amends with the victim, he thought it was good for him and more for him to realize what happened that night. As we said, he has brain damage now, so he doesn't remember the whole night. And I think going to the conference with him made him remember what happened. Changed his life a little bit so he knows what's going on, and because he doesn't remember much of that night.
There are times when locking someone up is really the only way to keep them out of society, but that risk wasn't there with these three young men, and quite frankly, I left liking these three boys very much. I didn't like what they did, and I never will like what they did, but I think as human beings, they're all decent kids, and I know that this has put all of them back on a decent course. They were a little off track. They were as they said, they like to party. And they've learned the consequences of partying. And this has weighed heavily on their minds, heavily on the minds of their parents and one of their grandparents. And it's, I'm just very thankful that this process was there to help my son face the people who had hurt him, help him understand what had happened, help him understand that his use of alcohol that night, things might have been different if even he were sober and they weren't.
Oh, I think they got a lot out of it. I don't think the words that I can say will tell anybody how much they got out of it, because only they know themselves. And I think, they know inside that what they did was wrong. I think they're all very remorseful, and I think that we gave them a lot of time to think about things rather than just slamming the door on them. They had more time to think about what really happened.
I think it was one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my life to do with one of my children, and not that what led up to this was a good thing, but what came out of this I think was a very good thing. I feel all the boys learned a lot, and I think everybody walks away with something kind of big. It was almost like a gift, a bad way to get that gift, but in a way, and not to be morbid or anything, in a way I'm kind of glad this happened to my son, because I think he's learned a huge lesson in life at a young age, and I believe all the boys have, and definitely a great lesson.
So I'd like to tell other teenagers or anyone, any youth that think that going out and beating up people it's not all fun and games. Maybe you had fun beating someone up or something one day or whatever, but they can go overboard. You hit someone too hard and find out that they're going to have brain damage and never going to be the same again. it's not a good feeling.
Stay out of trouble, live your life to the best you can, and try to stay out of trouble. It's not worth going through all this. It could change your life like it changed mine.
Be careful what you do. Think about something before you do it. Just don't rush into things head first, because it's a bumpy ride if you screw up.
You put, I'm sure, hundreds of hours into this project, not only to help those kids and help my son, but to spread this word to other kids that they really have to think hard about the use of alcohol and what it may do to their safety and the safety of others. We all think it won't happen to us. I certainly, in my wildest dreams, never thought I'd receive a telephone call like that or face, you know, the 2 years of hell that we've been through. And it just shows you that it can happen to any family, anytime. It can happen that your child's an offender, or it can happen that they're the person who's the victim. It doesn't really matter. It's going to hurt everyone.
You can say that alcohol and drugs had an effect, but obviously you got to be responsible for your actions, drunk or not.
Well, I guess the alcohol or whatever kind of makes you, you know, you feel like you're Iron Man or something like that, 10 feet tall. Hey, let's go, whatever, you know. Who wants to fight? So that's what I think alcohol does.
I thought that the process was interesting. I would definitely do it again. I think it's also important that sufficient amount of time be allowed to have a meaningful process occurred.
Stand by your child, and I would recommend this program to any parent and any youth out there. And it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, but definitely worth it. It's yeah, definitely would highly recommend this program to any parent and youth out there that's getting into some sort of trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the best thing for everyone concerned, everybody involved, people that aren't even involved. It's great for. Just hearing about it, they can think about it, and if it happens to them, maybe go forward the same way we are trying to go forward.
The victim was reluctant to take part in the conference at first, but he attended and impressed all present with his magnanimous attitude. He continues to suffer the physical effects of the brain injury, and he has refused to attend any further counseling. He was not willing to take part in the preparation of this video.
Well, this was a very difficult sentencing because of the grievous harm that occurred to the victim and the obvious frustration that he felt as a consequence. It was important to try and reach a sense of balance for him in the sentencing, so that he understands that his frustration as against these particular individuals was better directed in a way to heal himself rather than just what one would naturally expect, and that's an angry reaction.
I'm just very thankful that this process was there to help my son face the people who had hurt him, help him understand what had happened, help him understand that his use of alcohol that night, things might have been different if even he were sober and they weren't.
In my view, this was probably one of the more appropriate sentences in the arsenal of tools that judges have, because all the parties were very prepared to participate and they all reach very meaningful lessons at the end of the day. I hope, of course it's so difficult to measure, how this will play out later on in their lives, but I would hope that it will be a very positive effect for them.
Well, I think that this type of conference, the people have to be selected carefully. This is a process that has a really wonderful use, but it has to be used in skilled hands with people who are well trained to guide the parties through it and make sure the parties using this process, that we're using good candidates. There are times when locking someone up is really the only way to keep them out of society, but that risk wasn't there with these three young men. And
under the former legislation, these individuals would have been incarcerated. General and specific deterrence, along with public protection, would have dominated the sentencing process. With the new Youth Criminal Justice Act, the focus is very different. Absent is any reference to deterrence. There is an emphasis on rehabilitation and reintegration into society. Keeping this in mind, alternatives to incarceration are to be carefully considered.
Well, I have some training in mediation, and it was a natural bridge to look at a mediation type of arrangement to try to help everyone deal with this.
As this file wound its way through the court process, it was the Crown who suggested that a family group conference be convened. This was done on October 24, 2003. It was a very emotional and gripping process. The value of its results are immeasurable, as each in their turn, defendant, victim, and respective parents, were able to reach a meaningful sense of reconciliation. This venue offered him the opportunity to release his frustrations. All parties are to be commended for participating in this unique and deeply personal process. With respect to the defendant's remorse, while they were not initially forthcoming in their acknowledgement of responsibility, they were so shortly after the incident. And with the results of the family conference, I am satisfied it is genuine. Reconciliation is an important step in rehabilitation. The family conference has also been a valuable resource in promoting personal and social responsibility and thus maturation of these youths.
It's almost like a gift, a bad way to get that gift, but in a way I'm kind of glad this happened to my son, because I think he's learned a huge lesson in life at a young age, and I believe, you know, all the boys have. And
I was just thinking about family conferences and their value and what it does in the sentencing process. It's such a unique area. Judge's experience is rather limited, and trying to understand what it does in terms of how it fits into the overall scheme of sentencing, I'm still unsettled in my mind where it should fit in. Should it fit in before actual sentencing itself occurs? Can it become a term of a probation? This is just off the top of my head, and reflect on where we are at this stage. I think that only experience will eventually tell what is the greatest benefit. Perhaps the best route was as we had done in this occasion, and that is before formal sentencing had occurred. And probably also for a couple of other reasons. If the sentencing, there's a definite shift in how sentencing is to be approached for young offenders, and the whole aspect of rehabilitation becomes a very, very powerful message, even in serious crimes such as this. It depends, of course, on the young offender, but it doesn't stop there. Obviously, it includes the victim as well. And it's probably a new experience for everyone to shift that focus and make sure that the victim becomes part of the rehabilitative package. And and to increase empathy levels between the defendant and victim, and understanding, so that everyone hopefully will be able to understand why their conduct was so wrong in the views not only of the individual but society overall.
But I think it all put our souls at rest to a great degree. And I think this kind of process is going to be used a lot more in our judicial system as time goes on, and especially with young offenders.